Minecraft was an indie game that, ever since its launch in 2011, the devs have been supporting with update after update for the past 11 years. And with 1.19.1 on the horizon, changing how the community views Minecraft forever, it's not out as I'm writing this, and with many already saying that the new updates feel like mods rather than normal Minecraft, I feel it fitting to go back in history and see what changed and why the community views the game and the team behind it so negatively. Minecraft's first few updates were mainly changing the game into what we know and love, so I won't touch on it much. The updates from in-dev through beta add things like characters, blocks, and world generation. The first big post-launch content update was Update 1.2 on March 1st, 2012. Some may argue it was the 1.0 update, but that was the launch of the full version of the game, so I don't count it as a post-launch update. The following update, 1.1, was pretty small compared to 1.2. 1.2 added jungle biomes, desert wells, redstone lamps, iron golems, and ocelots, among other things. I was 4 when this released, so I can't say much about community reception, but I don't see anyone complaining about it, so I'll assume it was received well. The next major update was 1.3.1, adding 1 new game mode, 2 new structures, and several other items. Keep in mind the contents of these updates for later. The only big thing to note about 1.4.2 is the addition of a brand new boss, the Wither. The next big game-changing update was the Redstone update, essentially adding a brand new game mechanic, Redstone. Who could have guessed? 1.7 added many new biomes, blocks, and structures, essentially being an early predecessor for 1.17/18, Caves and Cliffs. 1.8 added a few things, but the most notable thing to mention is that around when 1.8 came out, Mojang, the creators of Minecraft, got bought out by Microsoft, making Minecraft a AAA title. This is where many consider the decline of Minecraft to start, but it seemed to be business as usual over at Mojang. After 1.8 came one of the most controversial Minecraft updates, the Combat update. This update significantly changed and overhauled combat, again, who could have guessed, adding things like tipped arrows, shields, and most importantly, a cooldown between attacks. There were some other changes, like just rebalancing stuff, but not much to talk about. 1.12, The World of Color, is actually the first update I remember coming out back when I played Pocket Edition on my tablet. It just added different colored blocks in terracotta. 1.13 is what I consider to be the last quote-unquote normal update, being the aquatic update. This overhauled the oceans, adding coral reefs, dolphins, shipwrecks, and several other smaller underwater structures. I won't go over the changes for 1.14 through 19 in depth, since those are the more recent updates and most people watching will know what they were. But 1.14 was the Village and Pillage, 1.15 was Busy Bees, 1.16 was the Nether update, 1.17/18 was the Caves and Cliffs update, which is arguably the biggest update since the original 1.0 release. And then 1.19, the Wild update, the most recent, which is actually on a similar scale to the older updates, just adding a new biome and a few new mobs and blocks. Now that we're caught up on some of the bigger updates, let's take a look at the change post 1.13 and why the recent updates have been so poorly received. The first major change I can find between 1.13 and the following updates is the change in art style. As Minecraft developed, they could do more with the art style. We could already see in the 1.13 editions, the Phantoms, a slight change in the art style, with their models being a bit more complicated than the mobs before it. The bees also had much more animation than previous mobs, which did make it look a bit odd. This is nothing big and was seen as a decently welcome change, but it only got more complicated with 1.16 and following. The main offenders of the 1.16 texture clashes, in my opinion, are the piglins, hoglins, and many of the new blocks. 1.17 and 18 were on par with the Nether update, and then came 1.19. 1.19 added the Warden, as well as the Deep Dark, both fantastic additions, but looking at the Warden itself will show exactly what I'm talking about. These are very detailed textures with lots of motion and animation. As I mentioned earlier, in this realm of art style changes, the models have also gotten even more complicated. Instead of being differently sized squares, recent mobs have much more variation of shape. Look at a picture of the hoglin next to a sheep. The sheep is simple. The hoglin, on the other hand, is much more detailed with the model. Back to the blocks, I'll ask you again to take a look at this comparison. On the left is a grass block. On the right is the newly added sculpt block. Big difference with how the two look. I'm not saying the new textures look bad, but they definitely don't look like the other earlier blocks. With the only big change outside of the update being a change in art style, why are the recent updates so quote-unquote non-vanilla? While I do think the majority of it is the art style looking like something out of a mod, I think the mechanics the recent updates have added also feel very modded. Let's look at the most recent update, 1.19. This update added 2 new biomes, 4 new mobs, and several new blocks. So what, this sounds like any normal update. A bit on the smaller side, but still a pretty normal update. Let's take a look at a few of the mechanics the Wild update added. We have blocks that are only produced when a frog eats a magma cube. We have wireless redstone and a completely new mob that follows you by sound, both being able to be circumvented by using wool. That doesn't sound too bad, but I can definitely see where the complaints come from. Minecraft is known for being a relatively simple game in most aspects, but these features are so dynamic with so many ways to do things that it definitely feels more modded than vanilla. To switch gears for a second, let's talk about Terraria, a game coming out the same year being updated for just as long. I'm not trying to create any more comparisons between the two games as games, I'm just going to be talking about how both handle updates. Minecraft, with a team of around 600 to 700 employees, likes to get one major update out per year, a pretty good system. The people at Relogic, a team of 11 people, get updates out when they're ready. I'll compare Minecraft's 1.19 update to 1.4.4, the upcoming update to Terraria. Mojang tried to do a lot with 1.19, but ended up scrapping stuff due to time constraints, or at least that's what I've guessed, releasing the update to fit with the schedule. The team at Relogic have stated that they've passed their deadline for 1.4.4, but want to add as much as they can for the quote-unquote final Terraria update, and have been actively listening to their community for ideas and suggestions, providing almost weekly news updates. This is what you'd see with older Mojang. Updates weren't consistent, but they were good, and they were transparent with their community. News about updates and the team's progress were pretty common, with screenshots of what they've been doing pretty commonplace as well. But that all slowly faded out, with the company getting more distant from the community that made it what it is in the first place. And now for the big one, the community's recent negative view of Mojang, starting around the release of Bedrock Marketplace on June 1st, 2017. This was a place for people, specifically those on Bedrock, to pay money for things that Java players could get for free, mainly maps, skins, and mods. While I see why it was put in place, since I'm not 100% sure, that most consoles have rules about how mods are handled on the platform, so having only Mojang-approved mods available on Bedrock made sense. However, the real issue is the in-game currency used to buy the mods. These things, minecoins, cost about $3 Canadian to get 320 of them, with most packs costing upwards of 500 coins. I'm fine with only getting Mojang-approved mods, but squeezing money out of the people who already paid for the game is way too far. The marketplace fiasco blew over for a bit, but more dissatisfaction started in the community with the simple addition showing in a trailer for 1.17 that never made it in the final product, the bundle. The bundle was an item to help with inventory management, almost as a sort of early game shulker box, but it didn't make the cut due to having UI issues on mobile. That wasn't too bad, but then when another feature, archaeology, also didn't make the cut due to unknown reasons, fans were getting a bit more irritated. I personally didn't mind it, as Mojang is a relatively small development team, again, only consisting of 600 to 700 people, and the Caves and Cliffs update was huge, with major changes being made to the game's engine. Then 1.17/18 was cut in half to preserve the team's mental and physical health, and that was pretty well received by the community. 1.18 was in development when we were told that the Deep, Dark, and Warden, two of the biggest changes in the 1.18 update, would be pushed to 1.19 so the team was able to polish it and make it the best it could be. This is where Mojang started to really lose favor with the community. These have been 3 features, all shown and promised, either cancelled or pushed back. I was personally pretty unbothered because of how big the update still was, but I can definitely see why people were upset. 1.19 was announced, looking to be a pretty big update as well, adding 2 new biomes, 5 new mobs, an overhaul to an already existing biome, and even more particle effects and general things to increase immersion. And then, one by one, features were cut. We still got 2 new biomes, the Deep Dark and the Mangrove Swamp, 4 mobs, the Frog, the Tadpole, the Warden, and the LA, and that's it. We lost Fireflies as a mob, and as a particle effect, the Birch Forest overhaul, and the rest of the added immersion promised. I can see where Mojang came from, especially after how big the previous update was, but where they messed up is showing the community. Even if it was just concept art, they showed it as a part of the Wild update, so that's what people were expecting. It's like if Nintendo released an early preview of the Smash Bros. Roster and you see Waluigi on there. The game releases and no Waluigi. You confront Nintendo and you're told it was only a concept art for a roster. That doesn't change the fact that they put out the roster without disclosing it was simply a concept that might show up in the final product. They put it out, fans got hyped, and inevitably disappointed later. And after the community is already upset, Mojang is only digging themselves deeper, although I don't fully blame them for this one, with 1.19.1's new chat reporting / censoring feature. While I do think the community is overreacting and overdramatizing what's going to happen with the new system, it is still very odd to see from a company like Mojang. This definitely feels much more like something Microsoft would do than something Mojang would do, and that's the only reason I don't think it'll be stopped. A year or two ago, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony all teamed up to agree to try and make the gaming space safe for everyone, and I think we're starting to see some of that now. And since it's most likely Microsoft making the change, there's no way I can see them removing the feature anytime soon. I don't think chat reporting will kill Minecraft. The bigger members of the community, like Hermitcraft and the Dream SMP, will still keep it alive, but the community will most definitely have a negative view of Mojang and Minecraft in the coming years. So what happened to Minecraft? I think it's pretty simple. It got too big. It went from a small indie game to a AAA title, abiding by the things normal AAA titles do. Yearly releases, tight-lipped development, and not as much community input. It's honestly quite sad to see, and despite the community's attempts to save the game, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mojang going down the trail that so many soulless corporate entities have gone down before. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this video essay, and thanks for all of the new support from my last video essay about FNAF. I honestly wasn't expecting it to get as big as it has, and I just like to say now that I won't be able to deliver content like that all the time because I have a life or something outside YouTube. I don't know, it's really weird. But yeah, thank you again for all of the support. I'll try and get more out as soon as I can. Editing and stuff takes a bit of time. But yeah, I will see you all in the next one.